Welcome everyone. We're going to be looking at mobile hoist today. What we should and shouldn't be checking on a hoist before we use it. We're going to be using a Mackworth Essential 180 hoist today. Doesn't really matter whatever make, model, brand. The basic features are all the same. You just need to familiarise yourself using the instruction manual as to that particular model. All the features and benefits of this one will probably be on other hoists, similar types. But buttons may be in different places, the charging functions may be slightly different. So for this hoist, we need to remember and think about LOLER. So lifting operations and lifting equipment regulations, very important. It's the law, it tells us what we can and can't do, what we should and shouldn't do when it comes to hoisting. So the most important thing, before we even consider looking at the hoist and using it, is it safe to use? So LOLER says it has to be serviced and checked every 6 months. Not a day goes past that 6 months. So we need to know either when it was manufactured, and if it was manufactured a couple of years ago, it should have been serviced within the last 6 months. So in the case of this one, it tells me on the top here when it was manufactured, and this was in January this year, January 2020. Because that's now out of date, it's gone beyond 6 months from date of manufacture, so that tells me it has to have been serviced. If it hasn't been, I can't use it. I need to call an engineer and get them out to service it. Down at the bottom here, if I go down here, you'll see that there's a service sticker on the bottom. That tells me when it was serviced, which was last month, and it tells me when it's next due to be serviced. So that has to be within the last 6 months. That tells me, in theory, it should be safe to use because it's been checked by a qualified, competent person. However, LOLER also says that it's up to us to check that the hoist is still suitable for use today. So we do that. I always start from the bottom, so if you follow me with this, check the casters by moving the hoist around. The casters are present and correct, they're not wobbly, they're not falling off, they're not coming loose. At the back of the unit we have two bigger casters, and these have brakes on, so we operate the brakes and make sure that they keep the hoist still. As importantly, when we take the brakes off, that the hoist actually goes back and moves again. Once we've done that, we can check the functions of the legs. So in this case, it's electric legs, so I press a button, the legs should open, which they do. Press the button, the opposite button, and they will close, which is fine. You will have hoists that are manually operated, so they will either have a foot pedal at the back to operate the legs open and closed, or they'll have a long arm lever at the back which you'll pull left or right, and that will operate the legs open and closed again. Also down at the bottom of the hoist here, you'll see where the hoist base and mast are attached together. So if you're moving the hoist unit and there's any kind of wobble or movement in the top, it's probably this needs tightening at the bottom here. If we tighten this bolt, which this already is, and we still get movement, that to me would suggest the hoist has been damaged in some way. Maybe it's been dropped, tipped over, bent, fallen out the back of a lorry as it's been transported, but something somewhere has gone wrong, because you should have a nice solid fix in there and the hoist should be nice and solid and not wobbly. Back up to the back of the hoist now. Working our way up the back, we get to the control box and battery. This particular one has a removable battery. Most will be like this. There are some that don't have removable batteries. This can be charged on a separate desktop charger, or it can be charged via the little cable and plugged directly into a wall. But obviously make sure there is charging there. You can do that just by operating the functions. There are some models which will have a display screen underneath, and that will tell you the battery level, as well as other things it can tell you if it's been overloaded, how many times it's been used, etc. We have an emergency stop function, we must check that. Operate the hoist, open, close the legs, up and down, it doesn't matter. Operate any function, hit the emergency stop button and make sure that all the functions then stop working. Twist the button to release it, and any of the buttons should then start working again. Up, down, open and close, they all start working again. We also need to check the emergency lower, and this is probably the most important check we do. If we can't hoist somebody up, they can stay safe in their chair or their bed. If we hoist somebody up but can't get them down again, then there's a problem. So if anything happens to the handset, If it breaks, if it doesn't work, you've run over and damaged the cable, we need to make sure we can get somebody down safely. So we can do that by using a pen. Underneath the emergency stop, there's a little word, it says emergency, there's a down arrow, and then there's a little hole. If I put my pen into the hole, it operates the down function. That means I can get somebody down even if something happens to the handset. Also, if the power fails, that button doesn't work with the pen, I need to use this red toggle here. So if I turn this, you'll see slowly the hoist will wind itself down, and that's the manual override. That's the way to get somebody down if all the power fails, or if somebody takes the battery off and drops it, breaks the battery, we can still get somebody down in an emergency. So we've checked the legs, the casters, the brakes, we've checked that it's nice and solid, it's bolted together correctly, we've checked all the functions at the back. It has got power because all the functions are working. So the last thing to check is that the actual boom is not damaged and bent and twisted in any way, and then the actual carry bar is free moving. It spins around, it swivels, it twists, and that the hooks on here aren't bent, twisted or damaged in any way. If they've been bent and twisted, it can weaken the metalwork, and that's the bit that's holding the patient in the air, so we don't want any of those to snap. In this case we have 3 hooks, so just very quickly, there are different types of carry bar. Any carry bar with a hook system like this is compatible with any loop sling. Now some hoists will only have 2 hooks, 1 at each end. Some will have 4, 1 at the front and 1 at the back, but they won't have the end one. And some will have 6, front, back and on the outside. It doesn't matter how many hooks you've got, all the slings can go on the same one. Because we have this 3 hook system, I tend to use the leg strap on the front, the hip strap on the side and the shoulder strap on the back that's closest to the person. But which ones you use is entirely up to you, as long as the general rule, whatever you do with one side, you use the same loop system on the other side, so that the person being hoisted is hoisted straight up. Once you've checked all those functions, we know it's been serviced, we've checked all the features, all the buttons work, then we're safe to use it. Because this one doesn't have a screen to tell me how much power the battery has, we just operate the hoist and it works. If it had a low battery, pressing the up button would activate an alarm to tell me that the battery is low, and you would get a beep. That beeps when you press up and stops when you stop pressing up. If, however, you press up and let go and the beep continues, that's your final warning. So when you first hear it beep, you will have about 5 transfers left. So finish what you're doing, don't panic. But if you press up, get halfway and it beeps, and you let go and it keeps on beeping, that's your final warning. Stop immediately what you're doing, get somebody down and safe, and pop the hoist on charge, or swap the battery for one that is fully charged by taking this one off. Once you've done all those checks and you're happy that the hoist is in good condition, then you're okay to go ahead, fit the sling, which we'll show you in another video, and off you go in your hoisting. Thank you for watching.